Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the New Mutants published by Marvel Comics in 1984. Issue number 17. Jetstream, Hamal al-Rahman, one of the members of the Hellions, is pissed off. Not because of what was done to him by the opposing team of mutants, but because of what one of his own teammates has done during their battle with the New Mutants. Empath, who was supposed to be on his side, started power tripping halfway through the fight, and this almost cost Hamal's life. Manuel's carelessness and stupidity were the reason for Jetstream to almost bite the bullet. Thunderbird tries to calm him down by saying that accidents happen in a fight, but Hamal is not having that. Thunderbird wasn't there and didn't see what Empath did. If it had not been for Cannonball, who was able to save him, his fall from the sky would have surely been a fatal one. Empath says that would not have been a great loss. Besides, he says, what else was he supposed to do? Since according to Empath, Jetstream had obviously proven himself to be incapable of coping with an opponent. But he cannot finish his words. Jetstream then slams Empath on the floor. Being not only a mutant, but a cyborg as well, he could have charged Empath with a speed close to the speed of sound, if he had wished to do so. Jetstream is furious because they are supposed to be a team, but that does not really matter to Empath, because all he cares about is himself. As Jetstream holds Empath to the ground, Empath reminds him that he has told him before to never lay a hand on him, and he starts using his emotion manipulating powers on Hamal, changing his anger into confusion and ultimately submission. Empath just simply forced Jetstream into apologizing to him, and he now wants Jetstream to beg for his forgiveness. But it doesn't come that far. The White Queen has entered the room and tells Empath that this has gone on long enough and he has made his point. She can tell by what's going on and by scanning everyone's mind that they have all pretty much recovered from last night's activities. She tells everyone to take their seats and she will review their performances. But Empath is not done with Jetstream yet. He whispers to him that he could make him loathe himself so much that he would instantly commit suicide. And if he assaults him again, or even only crosses him, Empath will make sure that he will regret it. But regardless of him whispering, the White Queen telepathically picks up what he's saying to Jetstream, and firmly tells him that she said it was enough. Empath thinks himself who Emma thinks she is to give him orders like that, but he puts up a charade and verbally tells her that he will do as she wishes. Emma then tells Empath that it's not a good idea to make enemies of those on whom his life may depend one day, but Manuel tells her, as he turns his back to her, that if that need ever arises, he will make sure that his teammates will do all that he requires of them. Emma thinks to herself how arrogant Manuel is. He must know that she's reading his thoughts, yet he is not afraid to show them. Confident that his empathic powers will shield his innermost secrets from her, and he's basically challenging her to prove him wrong. His ambitions and powers make him dangerous, but they also make him a perfect candidate for the Hellfire Club, provided that his actions won't force her to kill him first. Emma then asks the Hellions member Cat's Eye if she's planning on going somewhere, and tells her to join the rest of the team and to do so in her human form. Cat's Eye just wanted to go for a nap because the sun is up, but she obeys the White Queen's orders and reluctantly changes into her human form. To Sharon, her human form feels alien. It's ugly and clumsy, and nowhere near as comfortable as her feline form is. When everyone is settled at the table, the White Queen tells everyone that they faced what might be considered their opposite numbers a few hours ago. Novice students of Professor Charles Xavier. James Proudstar immediately asks her what they were doing here, but Emma tells him that is none of his concern. James then apologizes for having to tell her that he doesn't like the idea of fighting kids much. He wants the X-Men, because they owe him for his brother's life. His brother, John Proudstar, died during one of his first missions with the X-Men, and he wants to avenge him. Emma tells him to be rest assured because that debt will get paid, but he has much to learn first, as they all do. And she then tells Manuel to begin. Something unexpectedly then happens. Empath actually apologizes and says that Jetstream was right. He did indeed place him in jeopardy and he should not have lost his temper in battle. With Empath being cocky and proud, this must have not been an admission which came easily and is very out of character. The White Queen suspects there's more to this behavior than meets the eye. She thinks Empath is scheming something, but she will leave it for later. She tells the Hellions to learn from this, that as a team, their survival and victory will depend on their ability to work together. The team's best interest is more important than their individual desires. Tarot then utters a sound and Emma asks her what it is, but Tarot doesn't tell her and pardons herself for the interruption, as she's looking at the tarot cards on her lap. She was thinking of the New Mutants and pulled a card from the deck, and it turned out to be the one of Lamoureux, or the Lovers. Emma senses telepathically that Marianne's thoughts are in turmoil. She knows that Marianne lets those cards direct her life, and this fact may just affect her loyalty to the Hellions. Emma will from now on keep a closer watch on her. Even though she has thought about using her telepathic powers to realign Tarot's perceptions and make her less dependent on those cards, she decided to not do so because she still knows too little about how Tarot's powers work exactly. Somewhere else in the secret underground complex below the Massachusetts Academy, some members of the New Mutants and Kitty Pryde are trapped inside a room with the inhibitor field, which neutralizes all of their powers. This is the reason why they are still trapped. Kitty is already used to the fact of being trapped in here, but Sam is still thinking of a way to get out of here. Rain asks Roberto if he's doing alright. He wishes he could say yes, but he is not. Roulette did something to his back during their fight and it's still hurting him. He thought he would get over it, but it's now actually hurting more than before. Kitty tells everyone that even if they were able to get out of this room, their problems would just begin. The White Queen's powers are on par with those of Professor Xavier, and the psychic defenses he has taught these kids are no match for her. She would pick up their thoughts and be aware of their plans the moment they thought them up. As a matter of fact, she could be reading their thoughts at this very moment, and there is no way of them knowing until it's too late. Roberto tries to get up and asks for Sam to help him, as he screams out in pain. Kitty asks him why he's even trying, and not allowing his body the rest necessary to heal. She then tells him to go lie down on bed, and she will massage him some, to see if that helps. While she's doing this, Amara tells her that when they arrived here, they saw a giant image of her and the White Queen, who then told them that Kitty had joined the Hellfire Club. Kitty tells her that's a lie, and explains to them that the White Queen has been trying to brainwash her ever since she and Doug Ramsey arrived at the Academy, and she will try and do so to them as well, is what Kitty is expecting. The White Queen will try her best to persuade them to switch sides, and forcibly if necessary. Rain then asks why she would do that and what they are to her, and Kitty answers that they are simply a commodity of great value to the White Queen. Kitty then asks the team why they would ever think of attacking the Hellfire Club, since they are the X-Men's deadliest enemies, even though she appreciates the thought of them coming to try and save her from captivity. Sam then explains to her that they wouldn't have done so if the X-Men had been around, but they disappeared entirely on the day that Kitty and Doug left for the Academy. And the same goes for the Fantastic Four and the Avengers teams. No one knows where they went, who took them, and if they will ever be back. This comes as a shock to Kitty, but Roberto tells her to not despair. Since Danielle and Ileana escaped from getting captured and are still on the loose, they are not beaten yet. There is still hope. That's when they get interrupted by a projection of the White Queen, who tells Sunspot that he's desperately clinging to the frailest of reeds by hoping for those two girls to come and rescue them. The White Queen seems certain that if they are indeed foolish enough to return, they will share the same fate as the rest of them. She then suggests that in the meantime they should get to know one another better, and that Catherine has already made a splendid start. Kitty then tells her that she is a witch, and that her mind is still her own, but the White Queen mocks her. We then switch over to the demonic dimension of Limbo, the place where Ileana spent half of her young life growing up, under the tutelage of its ruler Belasco. It's an evil realm which exists beyond the boundaries of space and time, and is bound by none of nature's laws. This is Danielle's first time being here, and she and Ileana are lying on the ground unconscious, while they're being approached by multiple demonic creatures. Danielle is the first one to wake up, and only just in time to counterattack one of the monsters. She yells out for the creatures to get away from them, but they don't listen and keep coming towards them. Knowing that she has lost the edge of surprise, she decides to use her mutant powers on them. As she summons an image of the creature's worst fear, she instantly recognizes who it is. It's the demon called Sim, who himself has tried to kill Ileana only a few weeks ago, when he infiltrated the school. She now wonders if this is the place where he came from, and if this is indeed the place where Ileana grew up. And she gets her answer soon enough, because as it turns out, Sim is standing right behind her, asking her if this is merely a visit or if they plan on staying. A little bit later, Ileana wakes up as well and she instantly knows where she is. She was hoping to never go back to this place again. Danielle is by her side and she tells her that Sim has brought the two of them to his palace and says that she doesn't understand why, because she thought that he was Ileana's enemy, even though she is grateful for the help. Ileana explains to her that things and loyalties have changed. She herself now realizes that when using her mutant ability of teleportation, she has to travel through this place. When Ileana asks Sim where their clothes are, he tells her that with her being the Magus, the ruler of this dimension, and Danielle acting up as her champion, he thought it would only be fitting for them to look the part. Danielle is amazed to hear that Ileana is not only a sorceress, but such a powerful one that she's actually the ruler of this place. When Danielle tells Ileana that she had her worried and feared that she wouldn't recover and she'd be trapped here forever, Sim asks her what would be wrong with that, because he would personally see to it that she would be kept amused. Ileana has heard enough after this comment from Sim and whisks him away, by summoning a teleportation disc underneath him to banish him to another part of her domain. She then tells Danielle to step away from the bed, summons an enchanted pentagram around herself and casts a healing spell. It's effective and starts healing her cuts and bruises. Danielle doesn't know what to think of this. She recognizes elements of this magic spell, she knows the silver fire means white magic, but Ileana is facing the opposite way, namely the position for black magic. She doesn't understand and wonders if Ileana is good or bad, or that maybe it's possible for her to mix the two. After the spell is done, Ileana feels drained. She was bashed up pretty badly, but is now all healed up. This effort makes her want to sleep for a week now. Danielle asks her if she can manage without the rest she needs, and Ileana says that she will have to. She can tell that Danielle's more than a little scared and doesn't fully trust Ileana, especially after what she just saw. But Danielle still tells her that she will catch her if she falls. Ileana thanks her for that comment and tells her that means more to her than she realizes, as she summons another teleportation disc. Danielle asks where this will lead them, and Ileana tells her it will lead them straight back into the lion's den. They arrive at the administration building of the academy. Not exactly where Ileana wanted them to appear, but her control of the disc is not what it should be. Danny then whispers to Ileana to shush, because she can hear voices down the hallway. She peeks around the corner and sees who's coming, but she's shocked at what she's seeing. She then pushes Ileana into one of the offices, covers her mouth, and tells her to not make a sound. She tells her to just look and listen and that she thinks they have not been spotted yet, but they can't let them know that they are here. And what Ileana then sees surprises her as well. It's a group of Kitty, the rest of the New Mutants, and the Hellions, all wearing the same Hellions outfit, acting like they are all the best of friends. Danielle then points out to Ileana that something is off. It was winter when they teleported away from here, and it was in the middle of the night. But when they take a look outside of the window, they can see the sun shining bright and the trees being green. It is now apparently summer, and judging from the newspaper they find on one of the desks, over a year has passed since they left. Ileana's teleportation disc not only moved through space, but also through time, and they are now in the future. Obviously, the White Queen has made good on her threats, and she has somehow been able to make their friends desert Xavier's call and cause. This makes Ileana wonder why Xavier didn't stop the White Queen, but Danielle tells her that maybe he did, but he failed. And she also reminds her that he might not even exist anymore. Him and the X-Men not only disappeared, but could be dead for all they know. Ileana starts to wonder if this outcome can be averted, if they can go back in time and stop this from happening, or if this is actually set in stone. Danielle asks if it's even possible for them to go back in time, but Ileana tells her they don't really have a choice. But that decision has just been taken out of their hands, because they have been found out, and the White Queen barges through the door. She tells the girls that she already thought she could hear familiar psychic voices, and she continues by saying that their former teammates will be pleased to see them and will gladly welcome them to their ranks, as they have all missed the two of them terribly, as she herself has. She then tells the girls to be sensible, that resistance is useless and that flight is quite impossible. But before she can finish her sentence, Ileana summoned another disc and teleports the two of them out of there in a hurry, and not one moment too soon. They end up at the same place again, but this time around it's winter and nighttime. They look around to see if there's anything around with a date on it, and Ileana finds a calendar. Her teleportation was apparently off again, but this time only by a week. They are not sure if the damage to their friends has already been done or not. Danielle asks Ileana if she wants to try again, but she says that she put everything she had in this try. This is as close as she can get them. She's nervous as well, expecting the White Queen to pop up through the door at any given time. Danny asks her if she knows of any spells which could hide her thoughts, but she doesn't. Ileana expects the White Queen to not be able to read her mind, since Professor Xavier can't either. She then asks what Danielle's doing. She picked up a phone and is trying to call home, hoping for the X-Men to be back, since it's a week later in time. But sadly, there's no one to answer the call. Danielle thinks back to how she would argue with the professor regularly, sometimes over the silliest things, but now that he's gone, she misses him almost as bad as she does her parents and grandfather. Ileana tells her that she knows how she feels, since her older brother Piotr, the X-Men called Colossus, has been abducted along with him. There is nothing they can do for the X-Men, but they might just be their own team's only chance. Danielle wishes they still had the Hellfire Club soldiers' costumes, and Ileana says to just smile and say they're going to a costume party if anyone asks about their outfits. Danny asks, what if that doesn't work, but she gets no answer. Ileana just tells her to follow her, because the corridor is clear. They soon find their way to where the rest of the team is being held. Danielle first wakes up Rain, who screams out Danny's name, but she tells her to not be so loud. They are happy to see one another again, and Danielle tells Rain to get dressed while she wakes the others up, because they are going to get out of here. Rain then asks if Ileana is with Danny, and she gets told that Ileana is standing right outside the room, guarding the hallway. She tells Rain that there's no time to waste and to stop asking questions. In the meantime, Sam is waking up as well because the girls are talking. And as Rain notices that Danielle is wearing animal skins, suddenly the lights turn on. They have been found out again. All of the Hellions team members are standing in the room and they have been able to subdue Ileana. Sam immediately tells them they have some gods walking in here because the power inhibitor field must be having its effect on them as well. With Sam saying this out loud, it now makes sense to Danielle why her spirit forms aren't appearing, and why Ileana has not summoned her teleportation disc yet. She then asks the Hellions how they knew they were here, and Jetstream tells her that when they used the phone to call earlier, it set off an alarm and they simply answered the call, and with a very specific reason. He continues by saying that all of them joined the Academy and the Hellions of their own free will, and some of them do not like the idea of the New Mutants being forced to join at all. Besides that, their first meeting ended quite inconclusively, and they want to find out just how good the New Mutants really are and how well the Hellions themselves would stand up against them. So they are here to offer them a duel, one of them versus one member of the New Mutants team. The duel will take place in their combat room, and if they win the duel, they will all be set free. Roberto immediately asks if the White Queen even sanctions this contest, but Empath tells him that she knows nothing of this. She is currently in Boston, and Jetstream tells them to make a decision now, because this offer will not be repeated again. Danielle is now getting lost in her thoughts a bit. She's thinking about the other Native American on the opposing team, who she figures used some kind of nerve pinch on Ileana to knock her out. She just doesn't know what to do. They will be honor bound by their word, but how can she be sure if the Hellions will follow up on their promise as well? She asks herself why it is her who has to make this decision, but the others are all looking at her as the team's leader, so this is where she has to prove herself. And she accepts the duel. A little later, both teams meet up in the combat room, which is somewhat comparable to the danger room at the Xavier School. A training facility for the Hellions to learn how to properly utilize their abilities. Obviously, the designs for it have been pirated by the Hellfire Club from Xavier's own computers. Both teams have chosen their champion for this duel, and it will be Jetstream versus Cannonball, two young mutants with somewhat similar power sets, whose earlier duel was cut short. Jetstream lays down the rules for this duel, and Sam agrees to them by saying he's ready whenever Jetstream is. While the two boys are standing face to face and the others are watching them, Danielle and Kitty look after Ileana. Danielle tells her to pull herself together because they might have need for her pretty soon. Thunderbird tells the boys to prepare themselves because he's going to activate the room right now. All kinds of machinery start to slide out from the walls and the ceiling of the room. But Sam is hardly impressed with it. This room is nowhere near as fancy as the danger room, he thinks. But he soon does get surprised by projectiles coming at him. This makes him lose his concentration, and because of this, he stops blasting, making him get hurt by these projectiles, which would have otherwise not been able to hurt him when he's being protected by his blast field. Jetstream mocks him by asking him if their duel is over this quickly, and that he should perhaps allow one of the girls to take his place instead, before it's too late. But before Hamal can finish his sentence, he himself gets surprised by the room as well, as tentacles start to grab his body. Sam sees this happening while he's plummeting towards the ground and realizes that this is actually a fair fight, something which he did not expect. He then grabs hold of a bar and uses his momentum to swing himself upwards, so he can start blasting again without having to worry about slamming into the floor. It's an acrobatic trick which he learned from the creepy looking X-Men Nightcrawler, who apparently is actually a nice guy. Sam then makes his way to Jetstream, but before he can do anything, Jetstream frees himself from the mechanical arms and moves himself out of the way, resulting in Sam ramming himself through the ceiling. Jetstream makes fun of him, and the rest of both teams on the floor see all this happening. Sam is aware of this and knows the others are counting on him. He cannot let them down. He frees himself from the ceiling and starts looking for Jetstream. But unbeknownst to Sam, Jetstream is actually right behind him and blindsides him, slamming into him and throwing him to the floor below. During this trajectory, Sam gets caught in between two cushions sandwiching him. He starts realizing he's not doing a good job and that Jetstream is making a fool of him, and he is allowing him to. He blasts himself to freedom, but the wreckage he's leaving behind is falling towards his friends, and he warns Amara to look out for it. Sunspot is yelling to Sam to stop letting Jetstream control the match, and that he has a brain and should start using it, and he tells him to use a certain maneuver. Jetstream then tells Roberto to stay quiet, because this is between him and Cannonball alone. Roberto tells Jetstream that no one said they couldn't coach their teammates, and threatens Jetstream by saying that if he tries a crack like that again, it will be his last. Jetstream is not impressed by this threat at all, and continues to pursue Cannonball, who he thinks is trying to get away from him. But Cannonball is making his way to one of the rings hanging from the ceiling, and uses his momentum once again by grabbing the ring to turn himself in the opposite direction, allowing him to kick Hamal right in the face. Cannonball then grabs him mid-air, and when they both fall to the ground, he is right on top of the battered up Jetstream, telling him to spare himself some grief and to give up already. But Hamal refuses and would rather die than yield. Sam tells him that he has proven his point, that he possesses skills and guts and that he is nothing to be ashamed of, and that it's just that the better men won this day. They should just call it quits now before someone really gets hurt. But Hamal's pride won't let him. Sam then turns his attention to Thunderbird and tells him to talk some sense into this jerk. The Hellions have lost a duel and the New Mutants should be allowed to leave. But this is something which not everyone agrees on. The White Queen is standing in the room now, and she brought along Sebastian Shaw, the Black King and leader of the Hellfire Club's inner circle. He tells Sam to explain himself. Sebastian Shaw demands to know whose idea this duel was. James Proudstar, the Hellion called Thunderbird, then tells Sebastian that they all agreed on it and that they will share responsibility for this decision. Emma then asks him by what stretch of the imagination and by what right he dares to usurp her authority like that. She tells him that they can promise all they like, but this is her academy, and her word is law. She wasn't party of this agreement and does not consider herself to be bound by it. She then tells all the kids to return to their rooms and that appropriate discipline will follow in the morning. Sam is not having this though, and starts using his powers again. He tells the White Queen that the New Mutants aren't going anywhere except home. He starts blasting towards Emma and Sebastian and tells the rest of the team to run for it, while he will cover them. But when he slams himself into Sebastian's jaw, he quickly finds out that his impact does not have the desired effect at all. This is because, unknown to the general populace, Sebastian Shaw is a mutant as well, and his powers allow him to absorb the force of any blow and to transform that force into brute strength, and he simply backfists Sam off of him and across the room. Roberto sees his friend get knocked unconscious and immediately transforms himself into Sunspot. Danielle knows where this will lead to, because Roberto's powers are not the right counter for Sebastian Shaw's powers. All it will do is amplify his strength. Because Sunspot is not listening to her, she decides she'd best try and use her own powers on Emma and Sebastian, to try and throw them off balance. But Emma immediately notices the psionic attack. She can tell how powerful Danielle is, but that her psionic powers are mostly unshaped and untapped, allowing Emma to easily turn Danielle's assault back on herself. And now Danielle gets confronted with what she herself fears the most, which is the mystic bear which slew her parents years ago, and she cannot help but get scared at its sight. In the meantime, Sunspot has made his way to Shaw and punches him, but as expected, it has no effect and Shaw just laughs it off, mocking Roberto to try again, as he calls him by his last name. Shaw then grabs Roberto by his throat and lifts him up in the air, asking him what his father would say if he saw his son displaying such behavior to one of his dearest friends and fellow member of the inner circle. Roberto can't believe what he's hearing and says it's a lie, but Shaw assures him his word is bond, as he tightens his grip around Roberto's throat. The rest of the New Mutants team are going to try and save Roberto, and the Hellions team members don't know whether to help the White Queen or to stay out of this. Kitty watches all this unfold from a safer distance and knows she has only seconds to act. There is so much going on in the room at this moment with all kinds of hyper-emotional thoughts that she figures she might just be able to slip away unnoticed. If she can only keep her psi shields intact, the White Queen might not notice what she's planning on doing. She uses her phasing powers to make her way out of there and into the control room. Knowing her powers disrupt electrical systems when she phases through them, she pushes her hand through the front panel and into the circuitry below it, causing the room downstairs to go crazy. All kinds of explosions start happening, and Sebastian Shaw lets go of Roberto. Thunderbird tells everyone to leave the room instantly, and as the Hellions leave the room, one of them stays behind. The Hellion called Cat's Eye is actually helping Wolfsbane dragging Roberto to where his friends are waiting. Kitty has returned as well, and she tells Ileana to teleport them all out of there. Fast. Amara asks if the cat creature is coming with them, as she seems to be friendly. But Cat's Eye is actually asking Rain if she will stay here. She likes seeing another furry person, and even though she thinks she smells funny and is not so pretty, she thinks that maybe her and Wolfsbane could become friends. Rain, though, tells her that she can't stay, and she herself doesn't belong with the White Queen either, since she's evil, and she tells Cat's Eye to take her hand and come with them instead. But as the New Mutants teleport out of there, Cat's Eye walks away and says that she will stay here, at her happy place. An instant later, the New Mutants are finally home again, and they can tell that the lights are still turned off, so that must mean that the X-Men and Professor Xavier have still not returned. While Kitty will face herself inside the mansion and open the front door from the inside, Sam mentions how that limbo place sure is freaky and asks Ileana if she has to pass through there every time, and she tells him that she's afraid so. She herself wonders if they have actually been teleported to the right date, and she doesn't really know how she will ever learn to control powers without the guidance of Professor Xavier. Sam expresses his worries to Danielle about what will happen if Xavier doesn't return. There will be no one to teach them apart from the White Queen. Whether they like it or not, they might actually have to return to the Massachusetts Academy. At least for now, they held their own, but Danielle says that they got lucky this time around. She says that they might have performed well in battle with the Hellions, but it took only 2 adults to wipe the floor with them. They were simply out of their league. And at that moment, Danielle gets called by her last name. She turns around to look who it is, and when she sees it, she prays for the Great Spirit to protect her. But she gets told that nothing can save her, neither God nor man, and that she should bid farewell to her friends, because the one creature Danielle fears the most, the mystic demon bear that killed her parents, has now come for her to claim her life as well. Thanks for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. You can help growing this channel by liking, subscribing and sharing. This tells YouTube that the videos I'm making should be recommended to others and would be very much appreciated. See you next episode.